Good afternoon, everyone. I, Akash Karatmol, along with my colleagues Cameron Kirk and Mihin Verakun, would like to present our capstone project, Sterling Engine Hardware Packaging. I would like to thank all the industry representatives and our client Chris for attending the first industrial presentation. Here in SAID, every year MIT students have to design and assemble a Sterling engine as shown in the picture, and Aman has to manually count, sort, and pack all the required parts needed. Through this project, we are aiming to automate the entire system. And also, this project is to be displayed at SAIT Open House for future students. The highlights of this presentation are project overview, constraints and limitations, preliminary research, designs, conclusion, and finally Q&A. Problem statement. Assembly of Stirling engine requires 11 different types of parts and of different quantities. And not all the parts come in the same type of packaging. Some come in bags and some come as bulk packaging as shown in the pictures. So we are designing a handling and packaging system that can correctly count and sort the parts. And as all the parts are not going to be used at the same time, we need to seal them in a resealable bags. In a resealable bag, yeah. About 200 bags are to be packed during the seat open house. So we are planning about packing a single bag in 2 minutes. As it is to be displayed at State Open House, it should have a low setup time. Constraints and limitations. Unlike every other group project, we have only 3 members and only 2 of them have the 3D printers. As this entire project is going to be 3D printed, 3D printing feeders and bolts for different parts is going to take some time. 3D printing helps us to keep the budget of the project low. COVID has not only affected our lab times, but the lead time and the delivery time for the parts such as motors and sensors have significantly increased as well. And since it is to be displayed at open house, it should have like about an hour of setup time. Now Mihin would like to speak about primary research.
Hello, everyone. So one of the first tasks we did before creating our design concepts for our project was researching some existing solutions that we could adapt to some of our designs. I would like to go through some designs that we found interesting and viable with you next. In the first figure, we see a bowl feeder. It's a very versatile method for sorting a variety of parts. As you will see in the future slides, most of our designs employ an aspect of this method of sorting. And in the second picture, we see an automated packing system. It is a roll of bags go into the machine and it is separated and packed by the product automatically. This was a good design that we looked at when creating concepts for a bagging solution. And in the figure 4, we see a screw sorting machine with a vision system. The parts are identified using a camera and the arm with a gripper mechanism moves to the right location to pick it up. This method is a reliable way of sorting a randomized group of parts, and we looked at it for inspiration mainly for prepackaged bearing bags. In the next slide, we see a DIY project we came across that is a specialized bowl feeder. This particular design has slots built into the inner disc that traps and orients the ammo shells while rotating. It is a good design for parts which are cylindrical or can even be modified to be able to sort smaller parts such as the screws. And then we have the final 2 designs, which are the common gravity and the magazine feeder, which are very simple mechanisms for moving and orienting our parts. Both of these designs would work very effectively for counting parts with the use of a sensor as well. Okay, for the scope of our project, we have divided our project into like 5 segments. The first up is the hopper, where the parts are initially placed and then they are moved to a sorter, which orients them. A chute or a ramp then catches the part from the feeder and prepares it for counting or pick. And then we have the transport, which includes the use of either a robot arm with an end effector or conveyor or any other courier that takes the correct number of parts for packaging. And then finally, we have packaging, which drops the right number of parts into a resealable bag that can be used by the client. And the target is 200 bags per 10 hours of operation. Now I would like to hand over control to Cam to talk about some of our existing designs for our project.
Hello. So here I'm going to present some of our designs that we have from the what we've came up with after looking at our problem and our other ways that it's being solved. So first off, we have hoppers. So the hoppers are where we put the bulk parts because they come in larger bags of hundreds of parts. And some of the sorters can't necessarily handle that. So we have the first one, the hoppers. So this is where we put all of the parts, that way you can slowly feed the sorters to not overwhelm them. So first off, we have a disk hopper. This is just a rotating disk that pushes the parts out to the side and then down a ramp. This can allow to slowly push parts into the sorter. Next one is a spiral one. It's like a screw or a thread basically of the green part in there. This slowly rotates, pushing parts forwards. So the bulk parts will go on the top and then they can slowly get pushed out. Next, just a simple conveyor hopper. This is just bulk parts go into a bottom chute, and then the conveyor would slowly pick them up and put them into the sorter. Next up, we have the main point of the thing is where we orientate them. So the bulk parts go into the hoppers and then come into these. First one here we have is a bowl feeder with cutouts. A lot like the preliminary research, this one just has cutouts for the part to fit into them. So if it's orientated right, it will go to the top. If it's not orientated right in the hole, it'll fall off. This allows it to go to the top and fall down a chute or onto a ramp. This can be implemented for many different parts just by changing the disc. Next is a drum feeder. So with a drum feeder, we have basically the drum rotates kind of like a dryer, and it causes the parts to come up to the center and fall down. If they fall down in the right orientation onto the platform there, it will go down the chute. If it's in the wrong orientation, it will either reorientate itself properly or it'll just fall back into the bowl feeder, so it can be tried again. Next up, we have another bowl feeder. This one's a little harder to explain, but if the parts go onto the green platform there, and the green platform rotates, there's grooves cut into that, there, and you can see if they're sitting upwards or in the wrong orientation, they'll fall off and go back into the center. But if they're orientated properly, it'll make it all the way to the top. Once it's to the top, it'll fall into the blue plate there. If it falls onto the blue disc there, it'll rotate. The blue disc there rotates, causing the parts to be pushed out of the gray hole there. So once the parts have been aligned, they now need to be counted. First way we have there is mechanical counting. This mechanical counting is, you can see there's a little hole at the top there. So a chute or a tube will go into that hole. That hole can only accept a certain amount of parts. So if it's 1 or 2 parts that we need to count it can only fit 1 or 2 parts. So once the parts are in there, it will rotate all the way around, dropping them at the bottom, then coming back to the top to collect more parts. Next one is just simply a sensor there. So as the parts fall out, they would go past the sensor that counts them. Once there's enough of them have been counted, it would stop the bowl feeder from rotating. This allows us to count them accurately. Next up is just a magazine counter. So this will be actuated to allow only a certain amount of parts to be dropped. Next up, we have the bagging. So after all of this has been done and counted, we have to put them somewhere and get them ready for bulk packaging. So first off, we have a Ziploc. So using the robot with a combination of air to open the Ziploc or a mechanical way to open it, it would be in a robot or other mechanism that moves around to each of the sorted parts and grabbing them. This will then be sealed and then put into bulk storage. Next one there is just a magazine feeder with a bunch of plastic clear cups that are resealable. So that way they can just go across a conveyor, getting filled up with each of the parts, correct amount, and then sealed and then packaged. So in this presentation, we went over our project overview. We then had constraints and limitations that we need to overcome to accomplish the project. And then we have our preliminary research that we went over how other competitors worked on. And then through that, we took and made some designs on ways we want to accomplish our goal. Thanks for listening, and I can now take any questions.
I have one again. What part of this project are you guys most proud of so far?
So far, we've worked mainly on the sorters. So we do have lots of, we have a couple, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong screen. We do have a couple 3D printed designs that I think we've all made ourselves, and we've printed them and they actually kind of work. So I'd say I'm personally most proud of building something and then designing something, then actually 3D printing it and watching it actually count parts accurately. If him or Akash have any other want to put in their own, or do you just want that?
Yeah, that would be, as Cam said, like making our designs, 3D printing them and watching them work. Like, yeah, I'm the guy who doesn't have a 3D printer, but yeah, seeing my designs being 3D printed by others and working perfectly, yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah, and also Cam and I both got our printers really recently, so this is like a good project to learn the ins and out of actually 3D printing as well. And it's kind of cool, like with our designs that we have right now, we can make our system modular, which is like something we really look forward to, like by modifying small part, having it sort a different kind of shape is pretty interesting to me, and like learning about 3D printing. I'm very proud of that.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Look forward to hearing you guys at the next set of presentations.
Thank you.
Is there any more questions? Okay, if that's all, I'd like to pass it on to Chris. Thank you for listening.